Hey everybody! So today we're going to build this application that will mint tokens on Pushchain from a wallet on Sepolia using universal transactions. For that, we'll deploy a smart contract on Pushchain and build a React app that will use the Pushchain UI Kit SDK to integrate the Push Universal Wallet and send universal transactions. And as you can see, this is the end result. We're going to have the connect account button here, where we're going to click on continue with a wallet, and we're going to select Ethereum because I want to mint tokens from my wallets on Sepolia. So my wallet is connected to Sepolia. I already have a balance of 3. So I can simply come here, click on mint, and confirm the transaction. And then in a couple of moments, we're going to have some tokens updated on Pushchain. So we did this by using universal transactions, and I'm just going to show you how exactly we can do this. So as you can see, the transaction was executed successfully and my balance was updated. So we're going to do this everything from scratch, and we're going to just follow the Pushchain documentation. So let's do this. So first we're going to need to deploy a smart contract. So we're going to be using Hardhat for that. And let me create my project. So I have a brand new project here. Let me just create a folder called contracts. Okay, now let's just follow the documentation. I don't need to create a folder. I just need to initialize here, and let's install the required dependencies. We install the dependencies. Let's see. And now we have to initialize the Hardhat project. So we run Hardhat init. And for this, we're going to use a JavaScript project. This, I want to add git ignore. Okay, things are looking good. So we need to update our Hardhat config file. So let's come here. So we're going to replace this with this. So let's simply go over explaining what's happening here. We're just pointing here to our testnet, and we have this network that we're going to be using later. This is Pushchain chain ID. We're going to need to set the private key that we're going to be deploying the contracts from. I can configure this later. And here it has the Etherscan in case you need to verify the smart contracts. In this case, we're not going to do this step, but it's already here in case you want to do this. And we're using Solidity version 0.8.22. Let's go back to documentation and see the next step. So we're going to need to create a contract called mytokens.sol. Let's copy this content. I can delete this contract because we're not going to be using it anymore. The token is called mytoken.sol. And let's paste it here. I'll just do one change here, which is going to be to remove the ownable, because we're not going to be using for this demo. Okay, so we have the contract here. What else? Yeah, we need to compile, but for that I need to generate a .env file. Where we're gonna add the private key from the wallet we're going to be deploying the contract from. And for that, let me take the private key from this test account. Okay, the private key is set. Now we can come back to the documentation. And now we can compile the contracts. Let's come back here, open the terminal, clear the terminal, Hardhat compile. Let's see if it goes through. Okay, compilation was successful. Now we're going to need to create the deployment script to actually deploy the contract on Pushchain. So for that, the file is going to be called deploy.js. So I can come here, create a new file, scripts, deploy.js, and pasted it here. And nothing fancy happening here. We're just getting the contract code, deploying and waiting for the deployment to go through. And we're going to console log the contract address. We don't need this step because the wallet that I have set the private key has some push test tokens. And then we can actually deploy it. So let's deploy the contract. I have selected the push testnet, which is the same from here that we have configured here. And let's run this. We're deploying the contract on Pushchain, and we have here the contract address. That will be very important, so I'm just gonna paste it here so we can use it later. Cool. So we have deployed our contract on Pushchain. So now we're ready for the second step, which is gonna be to create the interface. I'm gonna call this React app. And let's create our application. So I'm going to create a Vite app. I'm going to take this. Let's go here. Let's create this. And let's create our Vite application. We have successfully installed everything. Let me just do npm run dev and see if the application is running fine. And it is. It's working just fine. So we can close this. And let's go back to the documentation. And what we want now is to install the UI Kit SDK so we can actually start building the interface. So I came back to documentation. I came to this integrate push universal wallets. And here you can follow the steps on how you can integrate push wallets into your application. And let's do this. So we're going to install the Pushchain UI Kit SDK. I'll also install ethers so we can fetch the balance from the connected wallets. Perfect. We have installed everything that we need. So let's go back to documentation and let's see what we have to do. So we need to wrap our application with this push universal wallet provider. So let me just copy this because we're gonna need this later. Go back to our application and close everything. So we're gonna wrap our application with that. So first, let me add this. I have to import the necessary dependencies. Perfect. And let's wrap our application. Yes, with that. And I can remove this because we're not gonna be using the button here. So I have wrapped my application pointing to our testnet. So now we can start building the UI. So let me just have this run here in the background. So we can always come back here and see that everything is working fine. Okay. So for the UI, so first of all, let's I have here the code that we're going to be using here on my other monitor. So I'll just paste some code here and explain what's happening. So first of all, we're just going to need to import the necessary dependencies. We have two React hooks here that we're going to use from the Pushchain UI Kit SDK. Because we're going to be fetching and minting tokens, we're going to be needing the ABI. I just added the ABI here, but you can get the ABI from the contracts. After you compile the contracts artifacts, and you're going to have the ABI here. But I have pasted it here. And we're going to need the contract address. And that is the address that we got after deploying the contract, and I have it pasted in here. So let me just add it here so we can point to the correct contract. So let's add the necessary hooks. So we're going to need the connection status to know if the user has connected to Push Wallet or not. We're going to need the Pushchain client That's going to be used to send the universal transactions. We have the loading for the loading states, the transaction hash, which is simply displaying the hash of the transaction after we mint the tokens, and we have the token balance that will display the balance from the token on Pushchain. First, let's add the balance logic. We need to add ethers. Yeah. So let's go over this function. We're just checking if we have the Pushchain client. We're gonna get the address from the client. We're gonna point to our testnet RPC URL, and we're gonna get the contract instance and call the balance of function, passing that address here. We're gonna have a use effect here, just to call that function to get the token balance whenever you change the connection status or the Pushchain clients. And lastly, we're gonna need the logic to actually mint the tokens. And to mint the tokens is a two-step process. The first one is to encode the transaction data, because we're calling a smart contract and we need to pass on the transaction argument the data property. And to encode the transaction data, we're gonna be using the encode transaction data function from the Pushchain helpers. Yeah, and that's how you call it. It's under pushchain.utils.helpers.encode text and just pass the API, the function name that we're going to be using, which is the mint, the arguments, and that's it. And lastly, we're going to be needing to actually mint the tokens, and we're going to be calling this function here. So we're just going to get the data that we got from calling this function here. And with that data, we're going to be sending a universal transaction to this address here deployed on Pushchain and passing the data here. And we're simply going to set the transaction hash here and update the token balance once the transaction was successfully minted. So let's just add some UI stuff here, but that's not the focus on the application. Yeah, just checking if it's connected. We're gonna have the connect account button here. And if the user is connected, then we're gonna display the connect, the mint tokens button. And if it's successful, we're gonna display the transaction hash here. So let's switch back to our application. It's running on port 5174. So let's go back here. Okay, it's running on 5174. So this is the application that we created. So first, let's connect our wallet. So it's opening Pushchain wallet. Okay, the wallet has opened up. Let's click on continue with the wallet. Select Ethereum, MetaMask. Let's confirm. And of course, since the contract was just deployed, we have a balance of 0. We can come here. The MetaMask pop-up will open. I click on confirm. And just wait for the transaction to be validated. Okay, the balance was updated. We have a transaction here. We can go to this transaction hash. We go to our donut.push.network blockchain explorer. And as we can see here, we have minted 1 token to the address here on Pushchain. So this is the demo. Let me know what you guys think. And as I said, all the code that was built was just following the documentation. And let us know if you want us to create any other tutorial video or if you want us to change anything on the documentation. Thank you so much.